My name is David Martinez. I'm 32, and I write code for a living. Pretty boring, right? That's exactly what my wife Sarah thought when she married me 3 years ago. What she didn't expect was how boring guys like me handle betrayal. My wife thought I was cheating. She was dead wrong, not about my faithfulness, but about how smart I actually am. I found the GPS tracker on a Tuesday morning, stuck under my Honda Civic like a metallic parasite. Sarah was already at her marketing job at Midwest Insurance, probably thinking her little surveillance operation was foolproof. My first instinct was to rip it off and storm into her office to confront her. Instead, I sat there in our driveway, engine running, staring at this tiny device. The rational part of my brain kicked in. This wasn't just about trust issues anymore. I'm a software engineer at TechFlow Solutions, which means I solve problems for a living. And Sarah Thompson Martinez had just become my most interesting problem yet. I left the tracker exactly where it was and drove to work like nothing happened. But my mind was racing. If my wife had gone this far, what else was she doing? The answer came that evening when I accidentally knocked over a picture frame and found a micro camera behind it, then another one in our bedroom, and another in the kitchen. My own home had become a surveillance state, and I was the unwitting star of the show. Sarah had once been cheated on in college, something she never talked about in detail, but I remember the flash of fear in her eyes when she saw Lisa's name on my phone. It wasn't just about me. It was about something she carried long before I came into her life. That didn't excuse the cameras, the tracking, the lies, but it explained the root of her fear. And fear, more than anything else, drives people to make terrible decisions. Sarah was in the shower when I did my systematic search. 7 cameras total, all professionally installed. This wasn't some paranoid wife buying spy gadgets online. This was expensive, coordinated, and thorough. I sat on our couch, surrounded by the evidence of my wife's complete lack of trust, and made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting her, I was going to investigate. If Sarah wanted to play detective, fine, but she had no idea who she was really dealing with. The next morning, I called in sick and drove to a coffee shop across town. 3 hours later, I'd found a $3,000 payment to Thompson Investigations. My wife had hired actual professionals to follow me around. Here's what Sarah didn't know about her boring husband. I don't just solve coding problems. I solve all kinds of problems. Let me explain how we got here, because this story starts way before any GPS trackers or hidden cameras. I met Sarah at a company networking event 3.5 years ago. She was beautiful, confident, and worked in marketing at a respectable insurance company. I was just another software guy in a cheap suit, but somehow I made her laugh. We dated for 6 months before I met her family. That's when everything changed. The Thompsons live in Riverside Heights, the fancy part of town where houses have circular driveways and 3-car garages. Richard Thompson owns First National Bank downtown. Patricia Thompson spends her days at country club lunches and charity galas. Their golden child, Michael, works at Daddy's bank and drives a BMW that costs more than my annual salary. Then there's me, David Martinez from the wrong side of town, raised by a single mom who cleaned office buildings at night. I put myself through state college with student loans and part-time jobs. The Thompsons made sure I never forgot where I came from. Sarah's always been too generous with her affections, Patricia told me at our first family dinner, smiling like she'd complimented me. We just worry she doesn't see people's true motivations clearly. Richard was more direct. What are your long-term financial goals, David? Sarah's accustomed to a certain lifestyle, but Sarah defended me back then. She said her family needed time to adjust, that they'd come around once they saw how much we loved each other. I believed her because I wanted to. The wedding was beautiful and expensive. The Thompsons paid for everything, which meant they controlled everything. I felt like a guest at my own ceremony. During the reception, I overheard Patricia telling her sister, "Well, at least Sarah will figure out what kind of man he really is before it's too late." The first year of marriage was actually good. We lived in a modest apartment downtown, split expenses, and Sarah seemed happy. But slowly her family's poison started seeping in. It began with small comments. "Jake called again," she'd say when my best friend texted. "Don't you think it's weird how often he contacts you?" Or, "Lisa from your work seems very interested in your projects. Are you sure that's professional?" Then came the phone checking. Sarah would casually ask to see my messages, claiming she was looking for something innocent. When I hesitated, she'd get upset. "If you have nothing to hide, why does it bother you?" The monitoring escalated gradually. She wanted to know my exact schedule at work. She'd call during lunch to check in. She started showing up at company events unannounced, watching me interact with female colleagues like I was some kind of predator. "Poor men are always looking for opportunities," she said one night after a few glasses of wine. "My mom warned me about guys who marry up. They get greedy." That phrase haunted me. Marry up. Like I was some charity case she'd rescued from the gutter. The worst part wasn't Sarah's suspicion. It was watching the woman I loved transform into someone I didn't recognize. Every family dinner reinforced their narrative. David the gold digger, David the potential cheater, David who wasn't good enough for their precious daughter. And Sarah started believing them. The irony of being surveilled while developing a surveillance detection app wasn't lost on me. If anything, it was perfect beta testing. 3 weeks after discovering Sarah's spy operation, I started working on what would become Safeguard. The concept was simple: an app that could detect unauthorized tracking devices, hidden cameras, and digital monitoring software. I had the best possible test environment, my own compromised life. I couldn't work on it at home, obviously. Every keystroke was probably being monitored. Instead, I used my lunch breaks and stayed late at TechFlow, telling Sarah I was debugging client projects. Technically true, since my marriage had become the biggest bug in my system. Jake Rodriguez, my best friend since college, was the only person I trusted completely. He works in cybersecurity for a financial firm, and when I showed him the GPS tracker photos, his reaction was immediate. "Dude, this is illegal surveillance," he said, examining the device. "You could press charges." "Not yet," I told him. "I want to understand the full scope first." Jake became my secret partner. He helped me analyze the cameras Sarah had installed, tracing their wireless signals and identifying the monitoring software. We discovered she wasn't just recording, she was live streaming everything to a private server. I showed the prototype to Lisa, hoping for feedback. She frowned. "This UI's a nightmare for regular users," she said, already opening her laptop. Within hours, she'd helped me streamline detection and flag hidden signal anomalies I'd missed. Lisa had been developing mobile security apps for years, and her insight helped Safeguard jump from functional to polished. "Your wife is running a full-scale intelligence operation," Jake said, genuinely impressed despite the circumstances. "This equipment costs serious money." That's when I realized this wasn't just Sarah's paranoia. The Thompson family was funding this operation. They wanted dirt on me, evidence to prove their theory that I was using their daughter. Fine. Let them watch. I started using my surveilled status strategically. Every morning, I'd kiss Sarah goodbye and say things like, "Big presentation today, hope the client likes our security protocols." Then I'd drive to work, letting the GPS tracker document my boring, faithful routine while I secretly developed the very technology that would expose them. The Safeguard app evolved quickly. I built features to detect RF signals from hidden cameras, identify GPS tracking signatures, and scan for spyware on phones and computers. Every component was tested in real-world conditions, my own home and car. Lisa Warren, my colleague and friend, noticed I was staying late more often. Lisa's brilliant, probably smarter than me, and she's been developing mobile security apps for 5 years. When I finally told her what I was working on, she immediately wanted to help. "This could revolutionize personal privacy protection," she said, reviewing my code. "David, this isn't just revenge tech. This is genuinely innovative." Lisa helped optimize the app's detection algorithms and suggested additional features I hadn't considered. She also connected me with her contacts at venture capital firms who specialized in security startups. You should patent this technology, she advised, and maybe consider spinning it into its own company. That conversation changed everything. What started as a tool for catching my cheating wife had evolved into something much bigger. I wasn't just gathering evidence anymore, I was building my future. The app's development accelerated when I realized Sarah's surveillance was actually helping me identify security vulnerabilities. Every camera she installed, every tracking method she used, became a test case for safeguards detection capabilities. By month 2, I had a working prototype that could identify every piece of surveillance equipment in our house. By month 3, I was getting interest from potential investors. By month 4, I had a patent application filed and 3 companies wanting to license the technology, all while Sarah thought she was catching me cheating with Lisa. The beautiful thing about being underestimated is that nobody sees you coming. The Thompsons thought they were investigating some poor loser who married above his station. Instead, they were accidentally funding the development of technology that would make me rich and expose their illegal surveillance operation. Sarah had no idea her boring husband was about to become very interesting. Everything exploded on a Thursday in November. I'm talking about 2 explosions, one that made me rich, and another that revealed just how deep the Thompson family rabbit hole went. The first explosion happened at 10:47 a.m. when Marcus Chen from Nexus Security called with an offer that made my hands shake. "We want to acquire Safeguard for $5 million plus royalties," he said. "Can you be here by 2 p.m. to discuss terms?" I sat in my cubicle, staring at my computer screen, trying to process that number. $5 million. More money than my mom made in her entire lifetime cleaning offices. More money than Richard Thompson probably had in his personal accounts. The second explosion happened that same evening when I discovered Sarah had escalated far beyond cameras and GPS trackers. I came home to find Sarah cooking dinner, humming cheerfully like she hadn't spent months treating me like a criminal. She kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I almost felt guilty for what I was about to discover. While she showered, I checked my work email on my personal laptop, something I rarely did at home. That's when I found them. Forwarded emails dating back 3 months. Someone had been accessing my TechFlow account and copying my correspondence to an external address. The external address belonged to Michael Thompson. My brother-in-law had been reading my work emails for months. Client communications, project discussions, internal memos, everything, including early conversations with Lisa about safeguard development and potential investors. I felt sick. This wasn't just marriage paranoia anymore. This was corporate espionage. I spent the next 2 hours digging deeper while Sarah watched TV downstairs. What I found made my blood boil. The Thompson family had been conducting a comprehensive investigation into my life, my work, and my finances. They had bank account information I'd never shared, employment records from previous jobs, even my college transcripts. But the worst discovery was a recorded phone conversation between Sarah and her mother from last week. I found it on Sarah's iCloud account. She'd been automatically backing up her voice memos, including private calls. "Mom, I think David might be developing something valuable at work," Sarah's voice said through my headphones. "Michael found emails about investors and patent applications." "Well, that changes things," Patricia's voice replied. "If David's about to make money, we need to protect Sarah's interests. She's been supporting him all these years." "What do you mean?" "I mean we need documentation that Sarah contributed to his success. Intellectual property claims. Richard's lawyer says if Sarah can prove she provided ideas or support for David's work projects, she could claim partial ownership. My wife and her family were planning to steal my success before I'd even achieved it." The conversation continued with Patricia suggesting they gather evidence of Sarah's contributions to my work. They discussed having Sarah start participating in my work conversations, asking technical questions, and creating a paper trail of her involvement. "Once David makes money, he'll probably leave you anyway," Patricia said. "Poor men always abandon their wives once they get rich. We need to make sure you're protected." I sat there in my home office, surrounded by hidden cameras, listening to my wife's family plot to steal the very success they'd spent years claiming I'd never achieve. The hypocrisy was breathtaking. That night, I lay in bed next to Sarah, watching her sleep peacefully while my mind raced. Tomorrow, I was signing a $5 million deal. Next week, I'd be a millionaire. And my wife's family was already planning how to take it away from me. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd been so busy spying on me that they never considered I might be spying back. I had recordings of their conversations. I had evidence of their illegal surveillance. I had documentation of Michael's corporate espionage. And now I had $5 million to hire the best lawyers in the state. The Thompsons thought they were playing chess while I played checkers. They had no idea I'd been playing an entirely different game. I decided to confront Sarah on a Saturday morning, right after she finished her yoga routine and was feeling relaxed. I'd spent all week preparing for this conversation, gathering evidence and planning my approach. "We need to talk," I said, setting my laptop on the kitchen table where 3 hidden cameras could record everything. Sarah looked confused, still in her workout clothes. "About what?" I opened my laptop and showed her a photo of the GPS tracker. "About this and these." I displayed pictures of all 7 cameras I'd found throughout our house. The color drained from Sarah's face. For a moment, she looked genuinely shocked, like she couldn't believe I'd discovered her surveillance operation. Then her expression hardened into something I'd never seen before. "I can explain," she said. "Please do, because I'm really curious how you explain hiring a private investigator to follow your husband for 4 months. Sarah's defensive mask slipped completely. "You've been acting suspicious, staying late at work, being secretive about projects, spending time with Lisa. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to trust me. We're married, Sarah." "Trust," she laughed bitterly. "My family warned me about guys like you. Poor men who marry up and then start looking for better options once they get established." There it was. The Thompson family poison, spoken directly. "Guys like me?" I kept my voice calm, but inside I was furious. What exactly does that mean? "It means men who see marriage as a stepping stone. You used my connections to get better jobs, used my family's reputation to build your career. Now you're probably planning to leave me for someone more successful." I stared at my wife, this woman I'd loved for 3 years, and realized she'd never actually known me at all. To her, I was just a stereotype her family had created. "Sarah, I've never used your family's connections for anything. I got my job at TechFlow through my own qualifications. I've never asked your father for business favors or used your mother's social contacts." "But you would," she said. "Eventually, that's what guys like you do." The conversation was interrupted by Sarah's phone ringing. She glanced at the screen and answered immediately. "Hi, Mom." I could hear Patricia's voice through the speaker, urgent and demanding. "Sarah, is David there? Michael needs to speak with both of you immediately." "We're in the middle of something," Sarah said, but Patricia had already hung up. 20 minutes later, the entire Thompson family was in my living room. Richard, Patricia, Michael, and Sarah, all looking at me like I was some kind of criminal they'd finally cornered. "We know about your little side project," Richard said without preamble. "Michael found emails about investors and patents. If you think you can cut Sarah out of your success after everything she's done for you, you're mistaken." I looked around at these people who'd spent years making me feel worthless, now demanding a piece of success they'd never believed I could achieve. "What exactly has Sarah done for my work projects?" I asked. "She's provided emotional support, feedback on your ideas, helped you network," Patricia said. "That's intellectual contribution. Our lawyer says she has grounds for partial ownership claims." Michael pulled out a folder thick with documents. "We've been documenting Sarah's contributions to your work. Phone calls where she discussed your projects, emails where she offered suggestions, social events where she helped you meet potential clients." I realized they'd been building a legal case against me for months, preparing to steal whatever success I might achieve. The surveillance wasn't just about catching me cheating, it was about gathering evidence for a financial claim. You hired a private investigator to follow me, I said. You installed cameras in my house without consent. Michael accessed my work emails illegally. And now you want to claim ownership of my intellectual property. We protected our daughter's interests, Richard said. Something any responsible family would do. By breaking multiple laws. Prove it, Michael smirked. Prove we did anything illegal. That's when I smiled for the first time in this conversation. Actually, I can. I opened my laptop and turned the screen toward the Thompson family. Meet Safeguard, the personal security app I've been developing for the past 4 months. It detects unauthorized surveillance equipment, tracks digital monitoring, and records evidence of illegal surveillance activities. Their confident expressions started to waver. See, the beautiful thing about being surveilled while developing surveillance detection technology is that I got to test my product in real-world conditions. Every camera you installed, every tracking device you planted, every illegal access to my account, Safeguard documented all of it. I clicked through screenshots showing their surveillance equipment signatures, GPS tracking logs, and digital intrusion evidence. This app just sold to Nexus Security for $5 million. Richard stood up, fists clenched. This proves nothing. Anyone could have planted that tracker. Really? I said. Because your credit card paid the private investigator. Want to see the receipt? Michael's smug expression faded. He looked like someone had just kicked his pedestal out from under him. Turns out, there's a huge market for technology that protects people from exactly what you've been doing to me. Richard's face was turning red. You can't prove we authorized any surveillance. Actually, I can. I played the recorded conversation between Sarah and Patricia discussing their plan to claim ownership of my work. Then Michael's voice discussing my hacked emails. Then Richard talking about using his banking connections to pressure my employer. You recorded us illegally, Patricia shrieked. No, Sarah recorded you illegally when she automatically backed up her voice memos to iCloud. I just accessed my wife's shared account. Completely legal between married spouses. I stood up and walked to the window. But here's my favorite part. Remember how you were so worried about me using Sarah's connections? Well, it turns out I didn't need them. Safeguard attracted investor attention purely on its technical merits. The $5 million acquisition happened because I built something innovative, not because I married into the right family. Sarah was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. $5 million. Yep, your boring husband just became a millionaire, the same husband you've been treating like a potential criminal for months. Michael tried to recover. Sarah still has legal claims to partial ownership. She supported your work. With what support exactly? Spying on me, hacking my emails, planning to steal my intellectual property. I laughed. Michael, you do realize that accessing my work emails without authorization is a federal crime, right? Corporate espionage carries serious penalties. The room went quiet. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm filing for divorce. I'm also filing criminal complaints for illegal surveillance, harassment, corporate espionage, and invasion of privacy. Sarah, you can keep the house. I never liked it anyway. But you'll be paying your own legal fees. You can't do this, Richard said. I have influence in this city. I can make things difficult for you. Actually, you can't. I pulled up another screen on my laptop. See, Safeguard's success story is already attracting media attention. TechCrunch wants to interview me about developing privacy protection technology while being illegally surveilled. The irony is just too perfect for journalists to ignore. I looked directly at Richard. How do you think it'll look when the story breaks that a prominent banker was involved in illegal surveillance and corporate espionage? Your regulators might have questions about customer privacy at First National Bank. Patricia was frantically whispering to Richard, probably realizing their social reputation was about to implode. The best part is I don't even need revenge anymore, I said. Safeguard's success speaks for itself. I'm going to be featured in Forbes as an innovator who turned personal adversity into technological breakthrough. Meanwhile, you'll all be known as the family who illegally spied on someone and still couldn't stop his success. Sarah finally spoke, her voice small. David, we can work this out. We don't need to involve lawyers. Sarah, you involved private investigators, surveillance equipment, and corporate espionage. We're way past the point where we can work this out. I closed my laptop. You have 24 hours to remove every surveillance device from this house. After that, I'm holding a press conference announcing Safeguard's acquisition and how illegal surveillance inspired it. 6 months later, I'm reading a Forbes headline, "From Surveillance Victim to Privacy Pioneer." The fallout came fast. Sarah settled the divorce after I showed my evidence. She lost her job and moved back in with her parents. Richard's under federal investigation. Patricia sold their mansion to cover legal fees. Michael was fired and faces charges for espionage. The Pie, an undercover journalist, his exposé went viral. Safeguard has detected over 50,000 surveillance devices. I'm now Nexus Security's chief privacy officer. Jake joined the team. Lisa and I are together. She values what I built. Next month, I'm giving a TED Talk, How My Wife's Surveillance Made Me a Millionaire. The Thompsons wanted to prove I was a gold digger. They ended up funding my gold.